And Senator, you're not on the subcommittee, but I think you sit in on these things, being on the committee itself. And I have to say, it's pretty heartwarming to see the bipartisanship, and just both sides have their reasons for bashing Facebook, I think, and it's rare. But you've got your own problems, I think, maybe from a little bit different perspective.
Well, I will say in the past several weeks, we've had two different hearings with testimony from witnesses from Facebook, and their refusal to accept responsibility for their consistent misconduct is really stunning. As you know, in recent weeks, the Wall Street Journal had a blockbuster story exposing the internal research that Facebook conducted, that Facebook paid for, that examined Instagram and Instagram's negative effect, particularly on teenage girls. That its algorithms take body image problems that teenage girls have, take issues like depression that teenage girls have, and they bombard them with images and content designed to basically bring them down a rabbit hole of depression. And their own research showed that a significant percentage of teenage girls had suicidal thought because of the Instagram algorithm, and that tragically some of those teenage girls carried out those suicidal thoughts. And as I said, we've had two hearings where I've questioned Facebook, and their defense is the Sergeant Schultz defense. I see nothing, I know nothing. So they get the research. So far, both witnesses have refused to answer on the record whether Mark Zuckerberg was personally aware of that research. The Wall Street Journal reported that he was, but Facebook, apparently nobody wants to answer that. And the question I've asked repeatedly is, okay, when you got research that said your product was designed to hurt teenage girls, what did you change? What did you do differently? And repeatedly, the Facebook witnesses essentially say nothing. Look, we're in the money-making business, and if human lives are lost, what they effectively said is that's an acceptable collateral damage. I think that is horrific. I say this as the daughter of two girls, and I think we are going to see very serious scrutiny to Facebook, and I'm sure litigation will follow. That kind of brazen disregard, frankly, it reminded me of the testimony of the Boeing CEO following the horrific crash of the 737 MAX, where it was the same sort of brazen disregard for human life that we ought to expect better from our business leaders.
What's regulation look like? Can they self-regulate? Do you expect Facebook to do the right thing in terms of the algorithms at some point, Senator? Or do you think you never want Congress or politicians to step in, do you?
No, and look, there are sort of twin directions that the two parties are wanting. You're right, there's bipartisan agreement that big tech has gotten too big and is too dangerous, but the directions they're going are different. Many of the Democrats are arguing that Facebook and social media should do even more censorship, should silence any and every view they disagree with, that if there's a political view, remember, Facebook and Twitter have both banned President Donald Trump, and so they're brazen in their political censorship, and a lot of Democrats say, do more, do more, do more. The only views we want allowed are the ones we agree with. I think that's going the wrong direction. I'd like to see Facebook go back to what it was 5 years ago. I'd like to see social media go back to what it was 5 years ago. The original conception was that it would be the public square, that it would let people talk, that you wouldn't have a political agenda from big tech engaged in censorship. At the same time, the problem with the teenage girls is they're designing their product to exacerbate really harmful tendencies in vulnerable kids. And it has long been the case that if you have a company that maximizes corporate profits by exploiting and endangering kids, they face very significant liability. And the only thing that saves Facebook and Twitter and Google and the rest of big tech right now is Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, an immunity from liability that Congress passed. It was essentially corporate welfare, a special benefit for big tech. And the reason Congress passed it is because we believed they would be a neutral public forum. In other words, it wasn't fair to blame them for what others were posting if they were simply the public square. Well, today, big tech is nakedly censoring for political objectives. I don't think it makes sense for them to have any special immunity from liability that nobody else enjoys.